Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. I'm Dr. Contrast, and we are live. Boy, it's great to have you guys on board, and both Dakota and Terrace, thank you so much for joining us today. Really good to have you on board, and I won't begin until I make this comment. I'm very, very sincere. What you did for me last Wednesday was terrific in putting those pieces together and looking for refinements on this Aircrasft study that we're doing through Empathy. And it's always good to have another set of individuals out there that are looking at certain things and saying, hey, what if you tried this, or have you had that to take this approach? What would take place if this would take place? And the input you gave me really was interesting. So I took those basic concept studies we did last week, those three studies, and asked for some evaluation or appraisal on which way to take it. So today we're going to go ahead and review that and kind of refine that setup that you had suggested for last week. And I want to make this announcement before I begin too. I'm going to have a very short abbreviation today because I have an appointment with my grandson. I'm going to take my grandson and introduce him to my tax attorney. He's doing some great work. He started a business last year, and lo and behold, it has taken off like you wouldn't believe. So he needs some assistance on a taxing situation here. So I've got to head out by maybe around 3 o'clock or so, no later than that. We'll try to get some things done. So I want to thank you for your patience ahead of time. And what we'll look at today is a generosity, again, just a genealogy of what has taken place from last week. And I thought I'd go back and do a real quick review here to take a look at what might take place. And also, before I begin too, Dakota, man, I really was very, very impressive with the work you did. Did you get my email that I sent back to you about reviewing your latest Empathic sketches? I hope you did. And I apologize for the late response. I had some things to take care of over the kind of 2 days when I received your studies. So let me know if you received those okay. And as we go through this process today, if you have any questions, by all means, just fire away and I'll do the best I can to address them for you. And Terrace, I hope you're doing really well and staying busy, and also you're keeping up the great work as well. So here we go, gang. I thought I'd go back and a bit of review. It was interesting to me. I went back. This is the Empathic sketch we did 2 sessions ago. Hey, very good. Thank you, Dakota. Good. Was it helpful? Did I make it clear? Because if not, I'll make sure we do some take a little time today to make sure that what you're doing with those last. What I really was impressed with, just an incredible change from phase 1 to phase 2. You did a great job in getting more empathy, more form, and more line weight into the studies, especially 1 and 3. The ones you set were just terrific. So well done. Keep up the great work. And I hope it's been a very, I hope in time it'll become a very expressive and explosive tool for you to work with to develop newness in a vocabulary. Same with you, Van Terrace. Super. Now, with that thought in mind too, before I head on here, we talked about a couple of weeks ago about maybe doing an empathic study for product design, an empathic study for architectural design. So I think what I'll do is I'm putting an agenda together for the next couple of weeks, maybe not right away, but I'm going to switch gears next week. I've got a piece I want to show you that I'm working on now for maybe next week's stream. But in time to come, I'll put together an agenda or a lineup of, okay, here it is for product design. Here's what we do for architectural design, and see if we can get those things on board for you as well. So let me go back to the basics study here. This was done 2 weeks ago, filming the initial studies. We went through a whole series of variations on theme, and it started out, quite frankly, as a concept that I was looking at for maybe a medium-range bomber, all stealth, but with a drop wing system to it. The drop wing meaning a lot of tear in the actual drop of the actual wings, but also for a blended wing system too. Now, it's interesting. I looked at this again, and thanks to you last week, I went back in and analyzed what this empathy study was doing, and it dawned on me that going through the facelifts from your input, this had a presence about it, but there was something about that wing structure that was defying the fact that it was actually a blended wing. In most cases, a blended wing will come up off the top of the fuselage and then graft off from there. When you drop it that much, it all of a sudden begins to create more turbulence than it does actually more fluidity or streamlining and aerodynamics. So what you'll see here today is taking that same concept and from your input again, opening it up a little bit, lifting the wing structure a little bit, and getting a little less of that drop system to it. Still a little bit of it there, but getting much more romantic with some of the forms here, romantic in some of the cockpit area, and then dropping it off into a very flat upper with a blended wing coming off the top of the surfaces. So there's some variations there we'll show you. And again, I thought that was really interesting to go back and look at this. The concept was there, but if we took that whole area and dropped that line off about right in there, and then began to put that wing surface off of that, now that becomes a blended wing system, and it still looks new, and it's going to be very refreshing to work with. So here we are. That's a bit of a review. That's the empathic sketch that started the concept. Then from there, we're going to do a whole series of little thumbnail sketches. This is actually the driver here that started it all. Notice the plan view is interesting here. A little Coke bottle shape, wrapped over envelope around the engine nacelle. But again, notice that high wing surface was causing some difficulties in terms of getting that blended wing program to work with. So that was the thumbnail study we did, basic elevation and 3 plan views. Something about that fractured wing I still think is interesting, especially that area right there. Getting that fractured wing and the inverted forward thrust on the wing surfaces are still, I think, part of the package we're looking for to resolve here today. So that was another one of those studies. Then I went back on some ballpoint pen sketches. Just in review here, going through some of the newness. These got a little closer. Notice how the wing it's still dropping, but in some cases it got a little bit higher. That's what it started to look here. Got that up on top of the fuselage a little bit better. So I started to look at some of these earlier sketches to kind of put a plan together. There's phase 2. Notice it's dropping, but it has the implication that it's solid, but it still has that drop to it. So if I brought this surface up a little bit and then actually started that line out here, it might be a little bit better. And very simple, nice round form up on top with that very powerful engine system in there. Interesting to look at. Another variation with hydrogen power. Third study here. Go back down the line. And again, this is where it really started to tell the story. It was way too heavy. Again, if we take that same process and drop that wing surface and get that wing surface to drop a little bit and come out here and become much more, again, blended wing, much more powerful to deal with. So some elevation studies and a little perspective study to work with it here. Quick review. And go back into this guy here. Now a little bit closer. We're still dropping it here, but this one and this one started to make some sense in terms of getting that thing to lift up a little bit in that whole area, coming off a very round tubular form and then off that higher wing, which is really helping now to get that blend wing. So I started to go back to look at some of these sketches, and it really helped me to put together today's work, a little more body to it, a little more content to it, and a little bit more newness. So again, same thing here. This had that had a really interesting presence about it. Very spare-like, very, very round and organic, but at the same time, notice the wing coming off the top of that fuselage was really the goal to get out of here. So let me stop here for a minute here, guys, and that's your job. Is this making sense now as to why I went back into the history of the histrionics of this whole process to see where we were and what fatal mistakes I was making in terms of trying to drop those wings so severely and losing that blended wing? What do you think? Helping? I mean, it's a bit of review, and but again, I really, really cherish your input here, and really, very, very helpful. From sketch to sketch, week to week, and everything we go through in terms of what the projects are here on the YouTube channel. So again, I felt much more comfortable in this page here to kind of, it's got some things coming together. And you'll see some of the later sketches I work with today, it kind of brings that full forward and makes a really interesting concept in terms of putting things together. I thought this would be something I wouldn't mind going back to that form and developing a little further and really doing some really neat stuff in terms of could be an interesting concept like in squadron format. So that was a good check mark, illustration number 4. Same with this. All of a sudden now a little bit higher, a little bit more bulbous in the actual form. Not good here, not bad in the plan view, but this started to tell the story too. Much higher wing surface, much more fluid, and again making sense with that blended wing problem here. And again, last one, a little bit more architectural, a lot more really dynamic in terms of getting a lot more stealth-like in terms of the overall shape. Much flatter, much more contour work. So the evolution, really interesting. Yeah, it makes sense. Sometimes you have to take a step back and see if you're still on target. Yeah, that's a good point too, Antares, because I got so caught up this whole idea of this drop tear wing system in the first series of sketches on that bomber study that I just lost sight of the fact that you need to get that blended wing to get that thing back uphill a little bit and get more substance to it. So I think there's some real footholds here. So I think that was a contender. Maybe not so much that one. But I think that family, I think those two side by side started to make some sense in terms of, I don't know how you feel, but I think something about what was happening here was interesting. It was a really full plan form, but it was working kind of nicely. And I thought it had some substance to it. And again, this one had some real intrigue to me. Something about this very flat, very organic canopy or survival cell, and coming off with this very flat platform on top, but again, with that blended wing coming up off the top of those shapes, much more powerful in terms of concept work, and really closer to the goal I was trying to establish in the first place. So you're right, it takes that kind of, let me get these sketches lined up a little bit here. it takes that kind of input sometimes to really kind of, oh, step back. What are you looking for here? What's the analysis like? What did the empathic sketch tell you? There were some forms in the empathic sketch that were very elegant, but at the same time, that real drop tear wing did not meet the requirements of what I was trying to get at with this whole program. So I'm going to keep those handy for a moment. There's 4 and 6. So put those back in place. Now, from last week, you made some great commentary about taking, for example, the 3 studies we did here. Let me bring these out here. And we'll show you what we got here. Bring these along. There it is. You made some comments last week about the fact that getting some interesting things put together. I asked last wech for an appraisal on which one should we, what do you like in terms of sketches 1, 2, and 3? And you made some great commentaries here, and I think, number one, you liked number 1 with the base. This is the first one we did. But again, still had that drop going to it. It wasn't there yet, but that overall form, that very romantic-looking fluid shape, was interesting, and you seemed to respect and like that. But you asked to take the second sketch, to take that engine and sketch number 2, and insert that into this program. So I think that was part of a healthy one too. And the third one is like the hard edges back into from 3 into sketch 1, which is getting into this. I think you and Terrace made the comment about take that line, that contact point, bring it right back to the tail section where the hydrogen power is, and get that thing to quit. And again, maybe that in combination with bringing the wing surface up would really be a helpful set of circumstances. So yeah, I mean, what I did here, Dakota, was this. Even though the sketches weren't where you had helped me dictate the form for this week's go-around, I went back and did some little pencil sketches here, what those surfaces were doing last week to help me get to what surfaces will be doing this week. So these are very helpful in terms of adding some things to it. Still looks new. I think it's a lot fresher looking. It still bothered me with this area here. That drop tear was really the real, that was the choking point, for example, for me. So simple, done sketches in terms of, okay, what are the surfaces doing? What are the highlights? Notice a lot of paper. We're just getting to some of the romantic forms. I mean, I still think that Coke bottle shape is really fluid and helpful. It's less tube-like, much more aerodynamic looking, and I think getting this resolved, which you'll see in a moment here, is going to be a huge, big difference. So there's number 1. I'll put those off to one side here for a moment, and we'll come back and refer to them. Let me get this fluid space here. There's 1. There's a second one, and I think you had a great commentary on this one, Terrace. So look how much like a rocket. You're right. A little bit on it, but what happens to it is, look what happens when you begin to stub the shape. When you bring the wings, it's still down a little bit, still drop, but bringing it up. But that whole form is powerful. And then all of a sudden, this looks like it's really stubby. This needs a lot more relief in it. But I thought, again, this is a good sketch line study to kind of put some surface together and see what they're doing again. And again, really helpful in saying, well, what are we doing with this now? How do we see this thing getting resolved? And what happens to it, for example, when we start to shift the actual shape of the plan form and get more tubular-like and take it away from just actually reminding yourself of, okay, yeah, we've got some improvement here in some of the surface work, but I still think this is a little bit too stubby. It almost looks restricted. So I think those are the learning things. But from these studies, believe me, folks, you did a great job in helping me see the blind side of what I was doing here. It was really, very helpful. Oh, question, and Terrace, always inspiring to see your determination, doing as many learning as needed. Yeah, I think that I've always had a bad habit of doing that. I mean, you just see something like little subtle changes, like maybe a line sweep or the actual radius or actual cut line. Things like that make a huge difference, and I think I've seen that in your work as well, and in yours as well, Dakota. And again, I want to say this very, very, very sincerely. That last set of empathy sketches you did were phenomenal. That plate number 1 and plate 3 were great because you were using it more to develop organic shapes and line weight studies, but not drawing with it. And I think that's a problem with empathic sketches. We have a tendency to draw with a contact crayon. You're not. You're actually imagining form and seeing and visualizing sharp, dark and light, and then line weight changes that make a huge. Then you go into it and begin to extrapolate what takes place. And while I'm on that thought, when we do a product piece and an architectural piece, I'll show you a little technique that Sid Mead used, for example, of laying down an empathy strike, and then you take some transparency right over the top of it and start looking at pencil sketches as to how to what lines to work with, what to eliminate, what to add to it. So all that's going to be part of the packaging and some of the agenda I'll put together for the programs of the future. Promise you, it'll be very thorough, much less confusing, and hopefully much more direct. So thanks, Terrace. I think you're right. you have to go back in and keep developing it, for example, keep facelifting it, keep changing it, keep adjusting to make sure that the theme is correct and you've met the benchmark for what you're after here. So that was the second sketch we did. Again, surfsce. Just the third one, much more dramatic in terms of being a full form, what I would call almost like a flying kite, it's just a wing surface, it's a flying wedge. But again, it's much more hydrogen powered, a lot more fluid in terms of getting these shapes to work. It has that what I would refer to again as that body of form that we've got, that blended wing look up on top. Notice very subtle changes here in section form, but it's doing a great job of getting those wings up on top. Not so pleased with some of the weights up in here, but again, experimenting with the form, looking at the shapes. What if? I think one of the greatest things we can do for ourselves is getting this whole concept of what are the what if phenomena? What if we tried this? What if we did this? What if we tried to look at that? Maybe this goes softer, this goes sharper, this goes much more abbreviated. Those are the variations in theme that make a huge difference. It's like writing music. It's the same kind of tempo change when you have adagio, scherzo, and all these pieces of and the action of slow to tempo, high to tempo. Adagio, much flurrier. Scherzo, much flurrier. So the whole idea is almost like an insectoid. Yeah, it does. It looks almost like an insectoid or sea creature. Yeah, it does. I mean, maybe that's a good theme to work with too. Looking at maybe naming this stuff about what do we have there as far as titling goes, but it has a very aquatic look to it. Again, isn't it funny how design will mimic science or the environment or the animal kingdom or the aquatic kingdom very easily. So that's a good analogy here. But again, those three sketches, this one, let's go back to one. These three studies, 1, 2, and 3. This one, that one, first one, and the second one. And again, we'll go back here to this. And to the third one, really begin to open up the doors in terms of, all right, what do we do with these guys? This is the third study. Remember, the variations on theme. Now, from those three, next to the page, we did this. Now, I went back to line drawings here. Let's go back and look at this for a moment. Let's go back to this one. This one, this would be, I'd refer to this as maybe a 1A, all right? So this would be the first one we did here. There's 1 to 1. I can't get them up together here. There's the first one, last week's study, all right? I'll try to do this bit by bit here. Last week's study, this week's study. Notice, a lot more fluid. Brought the wings up a little bit. Notice how we changed the character. This back here was very abrupt. Changed the character back here. Got a lot more span. It opened that up a little bit more and actually drew that line through a little bit more. And it also has less drop. There's a lot section change here. There's a connection line right through here. As that begins to break, let me put that in there just very lightly. That comes down and then breaks. So it's really not truly a blended wing, but it has the potential to be much more like the format we're after. But I think the forms are there. I think this whole idea of the fractured forward inverted wing system, this almost trident look is interesting. So I think that was a very solid approach there. So that was 1 to 1. Let me put them together here. First week, second week. Some changes. Still have a lot of work to do back and through here, but I think it got a little healthier. So there's 1. Let me put this on top. I'll come back to it in a moment. There's number 1. Now here's 2. This is the second one we did. This is the second theme here we did last week, which is interesting, that more rocket-like look. But again, here's 2 in facelift. All of a sudden, notice what's happening here. I don't know if you just help me out here, guys. Elegant but lethal. Yeah, this you're talking about this guy here, Antares, that facelift study. Elegant but lethal. Is that what you're referring to? Hopefully. If so, that's really very kind of you to say so, because it's a lot more improved. I think it's got stronger. Still, that little weekend through here, but we're getting closer. So once again, is this the one you're referring to as being elegant but lethal? Cool. How about you, Dakota? Any commentary there? Yeah, it's neat. Yeah, cool. So there it is. What do you think, Dakota? You bowing that way too as well? A little bit more lethal looking, a little more goal oriented and directed to the actual theme we're after. Cool. So there's 1. Yeah. And this is 2. Again, I took that same rocket piece and said, you know what? This stub wing thing is a bit disturbing. But if we went to that too, let's do this. Here's facelift number 2. Notice again. Now, look what we're doing here. It looks quick, and hopefully it should be. Look what we're doing here. All of a sudden, this one started to click. Now, there's a little bit shallow in through here maybe, but this one, look at now, oh, but look at the section change. In, up, into the brow, into the section channel where the engine nacelle is, back across the form, up again, down and drop. Notice much less drop there. So in the front elevation, this has all been lifted. Now, there might be some changes here. Maybe we kind of open this wing up a little bit more mass to it, but there's something about this that looks extremely much more fluid. Now, we can go back and add that same engine system again like we have in number 1. This is more hydrogen look. And again, notice the tail rudder here, much more low profile. It gives it a little more stance to it. So I think this one was a really big, huge change in terms of getting this guy to put together. Where am I? There's one. Oh, it's underneath there. Okay. There's the first one. And let me get my hand straight out here. There it is. There it is. Yeah. So that's where we were. I mean, look at the difference. I mean, it just, I can't get them both on the same screen here, but look at the difference from going that stub wing look in here, going back to the same old form from number 1 and putting that shape back into it again. So I think this one has some real potential in terms of being much more blended wing, much more stealth-like, much more in terms of being the actual trident look we're after, that 3-pronged body, fuselage and outboard wings, much stronger. So I think there's some really good content here. So let me go here, and let's see, that one goes there. So that's it. Now, here's element number 3. Going back to this shape, so what if we actually, let's change this guy a little bit here. Let's take this 3, which is much more delt-like, of a big, almost like a flying wing concept here, and then went to this, where all of a sudden we still have that same plan form, but it kicks out a la F-35, comes straight back, comes straight back, and picks up that same engine nacelle again, but simplifies the actual shape itself. This is all blended wing. Now, there might be too much mass up in here, but at least it has, I think, that same character we're looking for in the overall concept of doing empathic aircraft studies. And what turned out from in the very beginning, what happened, the vision I had was maybe a medium-range bomber. Now it's turning into almost like an escort fighter, which I think is fine. And we can adapt that by stretching the wheelbase or stretching the length to get to a bomber system that could do that. Might be a variation on theme we're looking at here. So I'm going to stop here for a moment. So this is 3. There was the initial one, and then I just turned it around and took some of that same overall shape. We got a lot sharper and pulled them back a little bit and got the nacelles to work. So I'm going to stop here for just a moment, gang, and appreciate if you would take a moment and just give me some input on what you see in terms of development. Is there anything here that makes much more sense? Let's line them up. Let's see, that was 3. This is 2. Let me just line them up like that so I know where we are. There's 1. There's 2. And here's 1. Let's call this one 1A. This one would be 1A. Here's 1A. Let's get those up there just for a moment. Yeah, there's 1. There's 1A. That's the first one we did on facelift. And again, its initial concept was this one. That was the first one we did. And this is the second one we did here. So that's a facelift after that. Now, it might turn out, for example, I'm going to just do something very lightly. In a case such as this guy, if that becomes an issue for what we're after, it might be kind of nice to take this whole form and just lift this up by doing the following. Come up for this line here and just break this forward. And let that come through, draw through the shape. And yet, now what that does is help get that line a little closer. Now maybe we raise this, maybe come up with a kick here, and then open it up so that line comes right through. It has less of that drop. What do you think, gang? That help? I don't think it makes it clumsier. I think it just helps to get that, again, to get that drop out of the way. The section change here would come up, and the initial sketch would do this: drop in, then come down to this flat form where the wing surface is. By adding that line right there, I mean through the shape, it now takes that form and runs it right back almost to a much slower, even get this going even quicker. Take that brake line and carry the shape through and then drop it. Which gives you this now to that. So there are variations on theme that'll work there. All right, stop here just for a moment. Okay, based on those 2 lines today, do you think that helps? Yeah. Yeah, I think you got it. I think that to me I think that's a great point, Dakota. I think getting this shape, taking this out of it and adding that to it makes a huge difference. Now the neat thing about it is now once we get that lift up a little bit, now we can take advantage of this. Maybe it comes in and holds its line and then drops into this shape here, which is now really kind of this would change a section from there, set it down to here, down, change from that out to, let's let me turn this sideways a little bit. That comes down and it comes right out. Section change comes down and it comes right out. Let's move this in. Let's get this done. And it comes right out in that whole form. There's now my new section. How much flatter that is. That's much more blended wing. There's a little bit of a shoulder here, but that's not going to hurt you. I think even that break can be kind of nice too. So that actually can form off of there. That shape can come in and break, but it still has that high wing surface that we're looking for here. What are you thinking, Terrace? That help that line make sense? Yeah, I do too. Carrying that shape, I think that's okay. That's a good point right there, guys. I put a star by that one. That's a great facelift. Thank you. I mean, that makes much more sense. And I still think, I think you agree. This is the one we did where we took the sketch of number 3 and put those hydrogen vents or exhaust vents underneath. A hydrogen power, for example, it says, and a conventional engine system. You like that engine format better than the actual hydrogen, right? Is that correct? A much more powerful engine look as opposed to hydrogen. And these can be looked at as just dihedrals now, like draft directors. Good stuff, guys. Thank you. That helps. That takes care of that guy. Now, sketch number 2. What would happen? What do you think of this one? There's where we are. There was the original sketch. Huge change. In fact, almost all 3 took off in the same format we just showed you in sketch of 1. So let's put that up in place here. I think this one suffers from the same process. Maybe notice how we minimized this back in through here, added these canards down below, and added a fuel. This is actually hydrogen powered here. So maybe we go back and add that same engine system by going to the round engine here and bring that same engine package back. But it still looked pretty weak in through here. So what if we did this? In the same process, why don't we take that shape and again, bring it back. And again, draw through the form. Come back down to that section, which is going to come up, draw through, drop in, drop up, and it'll come right back into where we are, there to there. Making more out of that wing surface, and it's much more kite-like. I think that maybe you think. This is the same thing here. Does that help? Because if that's the case, now notice that whole shape now comes right off of that surface. Now it comes off, comes off, comes off, and comes off. That's all now blended wing, upper platform resolved. I think that makes a huge difference, guys. I really do. And then this would still be that scallop underneath, and the intake system be underneath, and then the actual, if we did that, we come right back in and take that same process and add this. Let's go back to axis, and go right back to round engine. So that gets us right back to simplifying that whole shape back there. So what do you think? That would be, to me, again, another, maybe that's a bit too extreme, but somehow putting more mass in this wing system so it doesn't look so gossamer or thin, it's going to be really, really helpful. What are you thinking, Terrace and Dakota? Making sense? You have been great today to help me get through this thing and resolve it. I'm going to take the time to do a really nice piece, finish the surfaces and get that done, then come back in and do maybe a nice little rendering and illustration to get this thing moving together here. So I'll hold on for a moment. Same question that we did here. That was a great addition, bringing that forward and adding that line right on through. Big help. Point number 2, same thing, adding more beef to the wing surface and then taking that line right on up into the shape itself, then breaking it so that it comes right up, and then all that surface is all high, all blended wing. That all comes through and then comes down. That would just break out from there. From that point, draw the line through to get the marriage point, and then from there, right on up, and then right on up. So it's much more. Much more. What do you think? Helping? That's super. I think that makes a lot of sense, guys. Good stuff. I mean, I think the actual form itself, I mean, to me, is very elegant. I mean, I don't want to lose, I wouldn't want to compromise that. But some of these canards and wing platforms is where the real issues are. You get that blended wing look and that very quick-looking arrow look, and again, that trident appearance in the shape itself. So it might not be that extreme. I can do a couple of variations and maybe minimize that juncture back to the fuselage and see what we've got. What do you think, Antares? I like the stance in the facelift number 2, but one with the front half and rear half could be harmonized a bit more. Number 2, this is it here. Yeah, harmonized, meaning some of the wing surfaces in here, you think, Antares? The stance and facelift of number 2, but the one with the front half and the rear half could be harmonized. Oh, I got you. Yeah, the front half and rear half. Maybe it's a case of coming back in there and holding this line and getting this thing to blend in by doing the following. Come back in through and kick this line back in space and do this. Maybe that's part of it. You get more meat inside. And again, that comes through. And we pick up a point of reference here, and we draw that line through in perspective, find where the body is, and draw that line, that juncture point right through in perspective. And we come right back and pick up that same point there. That's this. Coming back to that fracture point. So it's maybe that. That's midpoint. It takes that back. Let's come right on through here. So we'll do this here. Just get rid of this guy. And we get that look right there. Coming through, and then blending it right there. Maybe that helps. Is that more like it? Yeah, I think that, okay, that sounds pretty cool. So maybe it's this guy right here. That's great. And that guy right there. So that brings it, again, that brings it back in again and eliminates, let's do this. So there's the new surface generation right there. And that comes out of that. And that does that. Let's see what that looks like now. That comes in, does the following. And then this does the same thing on the other side. Now that all goes. I'm going to pick up the same detailing here. And same here. And that comes up. Yeah, much. I mean, I'd even go higher with this. I'd even bring this wing up here, get a little bit more height than this thing here. So you have almost that look, which gets you back to where we need to be. Let's see what that does. We can adjust this as we go, but I think that might be the trick right there. Just enough break of the variation to get that line to come right through. Now we break it. That surface comes off. That surface comes off. That surface comes off. And now you've got that blended wing look. What do you think? I think that, to me, that this line that's a winner right there. That's great. That really helps to solve that guy. That's cool. Very good, guys. So there's 2 being resolved. So that's my homework. I've got number 1 to revise, number 2 to revise, and we're done with those 2. Just put them on. And this one, I don't know. I think I've mixed emotions. There's some neat things happening out through here, but I still think we've lost a lot of that trident look. It's more of a Nighthawk 117 look. What's your opinion of this one? Be very candid about it. Does it even begin to qualify? There's where we were originally, and there's with the facelift. So I'm not sure I want to go that route at all. There might be some things that we have to take care of here to get that wing. I think the idea of getting the wings up really worked. But it might mean a little bit more of detail in terms of come back in and do some, what's happened here, just to do a really quick study. What if we brought this shape, brought this through, came back and took this canard here and brought it in. Favorite section here. Comes up, drops in, stays here with a little bit of this, comes out, we take that shape from about right there. We come back in and break it here. And then end this up, going back full forward here. And just putting a real simple break in here. And then really just abbreviate this, or just eliminate it. I just don't, it gets pretty complicated. I don't think that's going to be really an issue. For example, you lose that dart. Now maybe it comes off of this. Maybe that comes off, and that comes off, and that does that. So we actually restrict the space in here. And then take this shape, drop it a little bit like we've done, and then come right back in and pick that up. And then from there, pick up that. What do you think, guys? Makes sense or not? And all that would eliminate that. For example, let's draw a section. I'd get rid of those valleys there, come right on through with this section, and then drop it in, come through with that section, drop it in, come through with that section, drop it in, then open that up again and pick up this canard here and keep that structure underneath. That might be, I don't know, that might take a look at that for next week. What do you think? Let's see, Antares. I like the simplicity of the fuselage, an elegant Coke model form wrapping around the massive cylinder engine. The wings seem a bit alien to the rest of the form. Yeah, I agree. I think this, yeah, but now, question there, Antares and Dakota, if you're still with us. Does this look better in red line? That's the new approach. This comes through, picks up that canard. It still gives it that trident look, but that is going to be modified to the other side here. You won't see this on the other, it'll just come out, sneak through. That'll come up and begin to break back a little bit. I'm going to draw that guy through. There we are. Let's get that comes down. That gives you some idea of what that section's doing. What do you think? Would that help? Yeah, I think that red line study, I might take a look at that for next week and have you guys take a peek at it. But here's the idea. The idea is to get some sort of real consistent look in terms of being a blended wing process, B, very quick looking, very dynamic, very Trident-like with a 3-system wing. That might be the name, the Trident XP, experimental. I see. Yeah, that's a cool interpretation. The Trident with a 3-pronged fuselage, double wing, but it's coming in reverse. So I think that's a good name for this thing. But I want to really make sure that we have a good, whole, solid concept of all three. So what I'm going to do, with your permission here, I'm going to take your ideas and begin. Let's do this in red. I can redo these guys. Just want to make sure we get the changes made. That's good. That helps. We get more body in that form. That helps. So that's good. That one's already done. And then this one, same thing. We take that same process and bring this on through. Hold that true. Bring this shape right through. And then begin to break it. So we have more of this form. That's going to come down. Here's my break line here. That's going to come out down to here. Section. Out to the surface. Section. Out to the surface. Section. Out to the surface. So the whole idea, it'll drop a little bit here, but that's not bad. I'll give you a fracture, for example. It'll go from that shape, to that shape. And then maybe if we look at it here, maybe let the engine come, maybe actually drop this portion here, and that shallow, come right on through here, underneath the body form, where that is. Yeah, I think that, what do you think, guys? Makes sense? Get this shape to come right through, up, and through. And then begin to modify that to get this thing to do this on the other side. That's what you'll see. I think there's some good input there, gang. Maybe a little bit less, maybe more or less bulk, maybe this kind of, a little bit shorter here, end that up a little bit there, or there, and then take that body underneath here. So, lots of things to look at here. That's a cool interpretation. All right, what do you think, guys? Are we ready? So here we are. There's one. Facelift to one. That's an improvement. That's a good deal. Right there, we got it. Section number 2 is adding that form to it and maybe getting a little bit more, some of this canard, so I'll clean that up for next week. And then we'll come back in and it's got number 3. We'll try that. That might be a pretty, what do you think, Terrace and Dakota? See, that's a cool term. We haven't tried it. I think this in red is a much healthier look. Maybe we get less of this back here. Maybe we kick this guy back a little bit and then take it, and we'll do some variations on theme for next week. So there we are, all 3. Really great help. Much appreciated, guys. So those 3 of them there. And again, your input is invaluable. What a tremendous privilege for me to have you guys on board and say, hey, now this thing really doesn't have a you haven't life yet. You still have to work on it, and your input's been great. And to say that does look cool. I like the combination of the cylinder engine and the angular vents on the other side of it. Back to this one. Helping. Is that the one you're referring to? Sorry about that, Tara. So make sure we get the right communication here. So that might do it. Fun stuff, guys. Really is. It's an intriguing. It's a great process because you're dealing with some really delicate surface work, and you're coming from an empathic sketch. It was first strike much more ethereal. Now you're coming back into the reality of trying to adjust it to package-wise, and taking it from there. So, last comment. Is this the one you're referring to in Terrace on the combination of angular vents on either side of it? The Coke bottle form. Yeah, I think it's cool. All right, so. With all that in mind here, I'm going to have to wrap things up here today. But before I go, I want to make sure we get this, so you get to see this. I got this guy back. I finally finished up. This is the Ferrari piece that's going out this week. That was the actual finished, if I can get that thing to work a little bit here. There's the actual finished piece of that Ferrari illustration. 1A and 3A both. Ah, cool. 1A and 3A, both cool. All right. That's got it. So, just I thought I'd give you a shot to look at that. This is going out on Friday to my client up in Toronto. We just finished up that piece for him. Going to be shipped up to him. And I wanted to see it. Last time we showed it didn't have the background in or the logo added. But there it is in all of its glory. We're going to get that thing packaged up and on its way. Thank you very much, Dakota. That's fun stuff. And I'll be doing another piece here. I might start it next week and let me delay the aircraft piece, or I'll just give you the line drawing studies next week from our conversation today. And I've got another piece I'm doing for another client here that just approached me once he saw this. Said, oh, this is really cool. Could you do this? Oh, I'd love to do that. So I'm going to get that started as well. So this is one of those deals, gang, that here's what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for the fact that we have been given a gift, all of us, both you, Demetrius, Terrace, and Dakota. We've been given a great gift. You're using it wisely. You're learning how to really skillfully adjust it to develop a client base and to work with people respectfully who will respect your work. And I think that's the thing that I'm really grateful for. Over the course of time, I've had a great client base that understands the work that I do. They ask me to do certain things for them, and it's just a real honor. So this individual to ask me to do this, it's going to go to Maranello. I was really stunned by that, but he said, I just wanted to let you know that this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It's going to my office, and it's also going to Maranello, too, some evaluation. So great stuff. There's an actual elevation up on top. This, I think I told you last week, this is a 2-stage package. The larger illustration is high-speed circuits, open field like Silverstone, for example, the Japanese Grand Prix, etc. Open field systems, very high speed tracker shops. This one is much more of a streetscape, slow circuit side, Azerbaijan, Monte Carlo, etc. So he's got a twofold piece here. So I thought before I send it out, let you see it. And again, thank you for your input. Thank you for your inspiration to me. And above all else today, really, I'm so grateful for the fact that you take the time. But what is Maranello? Maranello is the headquarters of Ferrari in Italy and Terrace. So it's going to the factory for evaluation, and who knows, might be in somebody's office out there. So we'll see what happens here. I'll keep you posted. But Maranello is the headquarters of the Surfsce Ferrari. So, and again, I titled this thing as the Ferrari Formula One prototipo 326 12 cylindri. So it's a whole. It's practically it's itemized for maybe the year 2036 for Formula One development, and we'll see what happens with it. So again, I'll close it again when I just said a few moments ago. Thank you so much for your input. Thank you for looking at these sketches and giving me some great input about how to adjust them and make them much more meaningful and viable in terms of the concept is concerned. So that's going to go there. Again, I've got to run here to pick up my grandson, but I cannot thank you enough for taking the time today. I'll be back on live next Wednesday, and we might finish up the aircraft piece, or we might switch gears and do a little bit of some fun stuff. I'll keep you posted. Maybe make an announcement. And again, Dakota, keep sending out those empathic sketches. I keep looking at them and keep concentrating on getting that form down and line weight and thicks and thins down. Don't draw with it, but you're doing a great job, and I can't thank you enough for that. And then again, and Terrace, if you got some work to send along, happy to do so. Please take a look at my website, drcontrast.com. Any notes you want to pass along, drop me a note at jim@drcontrast.com. I'll respond as soon as I can. And last but not least, I will sign off with this because I mean it with the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for bringing just great people on board here. You've been a great help to me. Thank you so much. And never forget to dare to be great, because you are. See you next time. All the best, guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you. All the best.